Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or we've had a big setback? On this podcast, I'll be talking to some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on this planet who, at their worst, learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up and creating everything from nothing. Sarah Pendrick may look like the perfect Barbie, but her life and focus on women's empowerment was born from a youth of bullying, betrayal, molestation, even a rape. So much trauma. Sarah today is anything but a victim. She believes life happens for us, not to us. And her pain has truly become her purpose. Join in today and learn exactly how Sarah Pendrick leveled up and created everything from nothing, becoming the founder of GirlTalk Network and a true change maker in the women's empowerment space. Today on Leveling Up, I've got my good friend, Sarah Pendrick, and it took me some pleading to get her on this show, and I'm going to tell you why. When you meet Sarah, I'm just going to be real, she looks like a Barbie doll. You look at her, she's got the perfect skin, the perfect long blonde hair. She looks like a Barbie doll. And what's so interesting is she owns and created one of the largest women's empowerment groups, GirlTalk Network. That's all her. She's super successful at that and helping women break through and be empowered. And what's interesting is when you look at her, you would think, well, what does she know about that? Was she just born privileged? Did she have the perfect life? Who is she to teach us? And I was guilty when I first met Sarah of even thinking that and pulling up the judgment around that. But as I got to know her, I realized that she's one of the deepest people I know. She's been through more than most of us have in our life. She's had a crazy amount of stories and experiences. And what's interesting is I didn't know these about her. Many people didn't know these about her because she has overcome so much and she's truly learned to be that person that's not a victim. She's learned to be that person who operates from a place of things happening for her. So because of that, we hadn't seen a lot of this. So today I'm excited. She's nervous. I had to drag her out here, but I'm excited to dive into some of these stories and what makes her tick and how this became her calling. So hey, Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Are you scared? Are you mad at me?
I'm scared. I'm not mad at you. I love you.
Okay. Sarah, take us back because I know what I just said probably resonated with you, that women do think this of you when they see you. I mean, what comes up for you at first when you hear that, when like a woman feels intimidated by you because they see how you look? Like what comes up for you around that?
So I'm actually really excited to be doing this because I know this is the first time that I fully have spoke into this topic. I kind of dance around it and it's very, very important to me. And I say like, oh, I break judgments and stereotypes, but this is a deep wound for me and something that I will constantly be working on my whole life. It's been a journey. Like it would bring up a lot of pain before. Right now I feel a little emotional because it means so much to me. Like we all get judged. We all, have a story and it's hurtful to be honest. And
so
it held me back.
I
choose not to let it hold me back anymore.
It's funny, right? Before we started recording, what you guys don't know is I said to Sarah when she said, I don't know if I want to share some of these things. And I said, Sarah, do you want some feedback? And she said, sure, I think maybe. And I said, Sarah, I think what holds you back from a whole nother level is not sharing these things. So I'm excited to talk about some of these today. So I guess, Sarah, take us back because what you've created is just so incredible. And what you've done, the impact you've made is so incredible, but that's not always who you were. So like, take us back to like little Sarah, like you were a little girl, like who were you? Like, who were you initially? Like how did you become who you are now?
So initially, I look back at pictures of me and I'm so confident, so happy, just like waiting, like loving life, had this full like light inside me. And I know that's who I truly am inside. And I feel that person every day. But along the way, things happen to you that you get scared, you question things, it makes you smaller. It gets you to be scared to shine your light. And so my earliest memory of myself is just having so much light. And then along the way, that light being taken away. And just, it's been an up and down journey throughout my life, and something that I still work on, like I mentioned earlier, from starting at a young age. Everything starts from a young age, from the first time that someone tells you
Yeah.
something, or your first experience with trauma.
So what was your first experience with, wow, my life's not amazing and everything is not perfect. Like, tell me what happened. Like, where was that first thing that you looked at that happened to you before you knew that it happened for you?
The very first memory, and I actually remember exploring this in a Tony Robbins event, was being bullied by girls in my neighborhood. I was probably around
Mm.
5 or 6, and I just remember them making up a story about me and telling my dad, and me getting pulled out of my bed in the middle of the night with my dad, because I absolutely love him, but him not knowing how to raise a daughter.
Yeah.
And I have so much love for my parents, but everyone's just doing the best that they can. But for me, being pulled out of bed and told that I did something that I didn't do, from these two girls that made up a story about me, for they had to be 8 or 10. When you're that young, you don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's my first experience with not having trust.
because now you're not trusting your dad, you're not trusting the girls. And what did you start believing about yourself?
What I started believing about myself was, it was mostly like, who can I trust and what's wrong with me?
Mm, who can
Like,
I
what
trust?
did
And
I do?
yeah.
I had to have done something to deserve that,
Hmm.
you
And
know?
then did that bullying continue?
Yeah. And this is another reason why I'm so passionate about women's empowerment. And the reason that I do what I do is because throughout even high school, I've had a lot of circumstances with bullying amongst women. And again, it's all from a lack of not feeling like you're enough, and the society of pinning women against each other. So,
So why do you think you became this target for bullying? Like, not looking at it from, not making it right or wrong. Obviously bullying is wrong, but not getting out of that conversation. But what do you think it was that these other kids saw about you that made them bully? And why was no one helping with this?
right. So obviously, what I know now is different from what I thought back
Mhm.
then. What I was thinking back then was that there was something wrong with me. Again, I came into this world very, very bright, very excited, having these things inside me, like intuition wise, that I knew I was meant for. And I kept being told, like, that there's something wrong with me. That's the way I was interpreting it.
Yeah.
And I was getting bullied because there was something wrong with me. I was being too big. I was being too much. And those
Mm.
stories that I kept, that was the way that I interpreted that bullying.
Do you think it came from physical appearance? Was it like, did kids look at you like, oh, she's pretty, so we're gonna tear her down? Was it did you what do you think they were seeing, or was it that you had more? Like, do you have anything that you saw that was making you feel that you were a target for this?
So at that age, I had no idea. I was just interpreting that there was something wrong with me.
Got
Looking
it.
back on it, I do believe that it had something to do with a lack, or something that they saw
Mm,
in me that kind of put them like in survival mode, that they didn't have something, or that I took something from them. I just think when you're young, like
sure.
you don't have those tools to know better, and you're just in a survival mode, especially like in the generation that I grew
Yeah.
up.
So you form this opinion that I need to fix something on me. Something's broken on me. I'm not right. I need to fix something. Now, did any teachers know about the bullying? Did your parents know? Were you afraid to talk about it?
I don't think I realized it at that age, that it was necessarily bullying. I
Hmm.
really, really told myself a story at that age that there was just something wrong with me. And then there was a good amount of time from middle school to college that I became extremely, extremely shy.
And I cannot picture you shy, so that must have been a big twist.
Yeah, I mean, that's from college on, is what I
Yeah.
really get to work on, is that I get to shine, and that I
Mhm.
don't get to hide. And I
Yeah.
developed this, protection of myself, that I became shy, and I didn't want to be too much. I didn't want to tell anyone about what I was doing. I didn't want to have the attention on
Yeah.
me, all of those things.
So you didn't want attention on you, and you couldn't trust these girls. And then you had some instance, you were not sure if you could trust your dad or even your grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that like, not trusting your father or your grandfather?
It was painful. I mean, it was something that I went in and out of depression at certain times in my life, not even realizing that it was depression. And I really had this lone wolf thing. So when you ask me, like, did you get help? Did you talk to teachers? Did your parents know? It's like, they really didn't, because I didn't share a lot of it. I've always put on this, like, I'm going to be strong. I don't know what's wrong, but I'm not going to show it. And just this huge, like, wall of protection for much of my life.
No, and at some points, your dad and your grandfather actually hurt you in
Yeah.
some ways. And what did that have you believing?
So I knew that things were wrong, and my very powerful self to fight against that when I would get angry and be like, this isn't right. I don't, something's off. Like, I knew something wasn't right. I knew that the way that, there was some sort of abuse happening, a lot of emotional abuse. Again, didn't have the tools. And
is there an example? So, because some people don't know really what emotional abuse is. They think if it's not physical, it's not abuse.
right.
Can you give us an example of what emotional abuse look like?
There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of amazing times in my house, and there was a lot of anger, a lot of reaction, a lot of, you don't get to do that. You don't have to worry about that. You're going to get married. That doesn't happen to you. I remember one time my dad, for the first time in my life, someone had told me that I was beautiful. And when you go to your family, like, you're excited when you learn new things about yourself and you want to tell your parents. So that was my experience. So the first person I wanted to go to was my dad. And I remember him telling me that you're not beautiful. No one in our family is beautiful.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional. Now, of course, I realize, like, when anyone tells you that, it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. It's what their parents did to them and what their parents knew. It's always about them really wanting to protect you. So at the time, I didn't realize that. Now, and that's how I've been able to break through a lot of this, is that my dad, in his own way, wanted to protect me because he didn't want me to think looks were everything. Now, to the little girl, that was devastating.
Yes, and for people hearing, that puts you on a spiral of, how do I get to be beautiful then? Like, you really put this weight on there because you wanted to please your dad, it sounds like.
Yeah. And so now I think I went through all of that too, of, like, if I didn't get certain things, or I did, then I would weigh it on, like, looks, or that I wasn't this, I wasn't enough of that. So again, coming down to not feeling enough. And my heart's beating right now, because it's just, everything comes down to that. Whatever stories that we've been told and the things that hold us back. And just, I spent much of my life very unhappy.
Yeah. So what happened with your grandfather?
So I'm guessing on ages, around 10 or 12. I remember exactly where my family was, where we lived. And I remember him attempting to convince me that something was normal that I knew in my gut was wrong. And he attempted to sexually molest me. I was able to get out of the situation, but being a 10 or 12-year-old girl, and a man that is one of the only men that I know besides my father, the closest man in my life, is another experience with not being able to trust.
Yeah. So here's somebody that you really look up to. He's your grandfather. You're supposed to trust him. You're supposed to listen to him. He's the authority figure. And now you are confused, I'm assuming, like, what just happened? And
so I remember just knowing at that, just knowing that this wasn't right. Again, if you're taking yourself back to a 10 or 12-year-old girl, and what we talked about earlier, my first age at 5, my first experience with not being able to trust, it's devastating. And it really was a story that I had in my life, that I wasn't protected. I couldn't trust. I was all alone. And that's a very big common theme that I had throughout the first part.
I was all alone, because I would imagine you didn't talk to your parents about this. You didn't tell them.
So I did tell my mom at some point, and I don't know what was done about it.
So what did you start believing about your family then, and you?
Somewhere along the line, loyalty and trust became very, very important to me, to where I was almost searching for it. Like, when someone, and that's another phase that brought into high school and college, I would take things very, very personally, because for me, I just wanted people to have my back.
Yeah, you were searching for it.
Yeah, I was searching for someone to protect me, to feel safe, to always have my back, to not feel alone. And so
Mm.
when certain things wouldn't work out for me, I would tell myself a story and take it personally. Again, because I'm not enough, or insert whatever stories that I've made up along the way throughout my life.
Yeah. So then you have a boyfriend in college and so I'm assuming he gave you some of that. And then you get disappointed by one of his friends.
Yeah. So one thing, and I don't know why this is I always knew what I deserved and what I
Mm-hmm.
didn't deserve. And I
Okay.
was very clear on what I wanted and what I didn't want. So I wasn't someone that dated a lot. And, I talk to women all the time where it goes the other way, because
Yeah.
you're in search of a man or someone that you can trust, or to get that love that you're not getting. And for me, I think I was so closed up and bottled up that stopped me from going out and looking for love. And I was just very, very like high expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And what did serve me was knowing what I want and do not want. So I dated someone in college. I would
Mm-hmm.
put him in the do not want category.
Right.
That's another thing where everything ends up happening for you. But
Okay.
he was someone that I dated in high school, and we went to college, and I'm like, going along the train of what you're supposed to do, because that was the message that I had gotten my whole life. Even though there was something inside me that was saying, this doesn't align with who you are, I didn't have the tools, nor was I going down the path.
Yeah.
To follow that. So I was dating him. Again, I think where I got my love a lot was other family members, and then my women friendships that I did have.
Mm-hmm.
Still hadn't been in a relationship that really, really lit me up. I also wasn't necessarily looking for that at the time. But I was dating someone that I thought, okay, this is okay. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in college. And we were together at his house at a birthday party, and I went to sleep early,
Mm-hmm.
and his cousin came in the room and had raped me.
Oh, did you remember waking up during that? Like what were you, did you know it was him? Did you know what was going on?
So I woke up during it. Again, like the fight or fight mode, like I instantly knew, and I got up and ran out of the apartment, and I didn't tell anyone. So it was a
Oh,
common theme of my life that these things were happening. I knew how to get out of them, and then I would move on. Like
literally like sweep him under the rug. Like it didn't happen almost.
yeah. I didn't tell a soul until years later. I think
So not even the boyfriend. Did you ever see this guy again that did this to you? Like, what was?
I saw him years and years later, because he was contacting me. He did everything that he could to contact me. I found out later that he went into an AA program, and one of the steps was obviously to get forgiveness.
So did he in his head think he had not done something? Like when you woke up during this, was there a fight? Like get off me, or is it like almost like he's warped, thinking that not understanding that he's raping you? Like
It was almost like he was warped, and that he was obviously, justifying himself. And then I left, and I pretended for years that it didn't happen, and I did everything
Got it.
to stay out of the situation. So I didn't see him again.
Got
I
it.
think I saw him on campus, like passing, and of course I would go the other way. But I didn't see him again until some like public function. But he had found a way to contact me years and years later, and had asked for my forgiveness, and said that he had been living in fear for years, waiting for me to tell someone, and for like his whole life to crumble. And that he had been at that point, he was in an AA.
How did you feel hearing that from him?
Gosh, so I completely pretended like our bodies, our minds are so strong that I completely swept it under the rug and pretended that it didn't happen for years. And I remember picking up the phone, because obviously I had his number blocked. He had no way of getting a hold of me. And somehow I picked up the phone. It was a random number, and my entire body started to shake. Like I remember being like, and at that time, I was a psychology major, but I didn't have all the tools that I have now with self-development and being very, very aware. Like I was like, why is my body shaking? I mean, we know why now, but at the time it was like I had years of holding this in, never talking to anyone about it. Again, having things in my past, never telling anyone about my grandpa except my mom. and my body was just shaking. I barely remember our conversation. I do know that I forgave him. And then I talked about it publicly for the first time at my first women's event.
Mm. You told him you forgave him, or you forgave him on your own without telling him?
I told him.
Wow. And then you share, and then how did it feel sharing that for the first time?
It was empowering.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I knew that I was here to also be the permission for women. This is real life.
Yeah.
Many, many, many women have dealt with sexual assault. And when I'm in those rooms and over half of the women are crying because they have had something like that happen to them and they've never shared, and then they share in front of the whole room, it's going from feeling like you're completely alone, or this has only happened to you, or there's something wrong with you, to realizing that there are so many people that you pass every day that are in your life that this has happened to, and it's nothing to do with you. It's not your fault. And there's nothing that you could have done about it.
Yeah.
But you could do things about it now.
What would you tell a woman listening to you right now that's hiding this? Because I do believe there's a lot of people that have had this happen to them. You had several situations. You had, the two that you shared, and they believe that sweeping it under the rug or ignoring it is the way to deal with it. Knowing what you know now, what would you want those women to take on or to be aware of? Because I do believe it holds women back in so many ways when they do keep it inside.
What I can say is sharing it and sharing your truth is the most empowering experience, and it completely is the ultimate freedom.
Yeah, I love that.
And it lets you step into what you are here for. When you're carrying around a trauma like that, there's so much poison inside you, and it's not your fault. And to know the thing that keeps me going and that gives me that permission to do what I do and to share is knowing what it's going to do for someone else. And I was shaking. I remember this so clearly, being on stage. There were people in the audience that were my best friends growing up, and they had no idea.
Mm.
But the mind is so powerful.
Yeah.
You could have trauma like that happen to you and completely push it aside and pretend, and you're not serving anyone, and you're definitely not serving yourself.
Yeah, because shame is real, and whether we believe it's shameful or like that, it puts people in hiding, and it disconnects people to other things, and it does create more. It's the very thing we want to avoid, is that judgment. It creates more judgment,
Right?
Because the walls come up, and the perfection comes on.
The walls come up, the perfection, the just finding a way to prove yourself right. That person just judged me. That person's judging me because I'm blonde. I'm this. Oh, that's what I already knew. And so I'm not even doing myself, my vision, anyone a favor by doing that.
And I want people to know listening, like everybody has a story. Like every single person has a story, and judgment is so dangerous because like we do look at people and we automatically form our opinions about them. And there's always a story behind people. And what I want people to know, two things that I want them to hear from this is, one, to be really aware of how we ourselves are judging others. Like, because we do it, I do it, you do it, Sarah, we all do it. We judge. And what that means, like what it would be like to let go of judgment. And two, also know yourself, that by sharing, being vulnerable, opening up, connecting, it frees people's judgment of you. So it works both ways. So I think sometimes when we are so scared of being judged, we stay so close-vested, we stay so, the brick wall is up, we stay in hiding, we play small. That's the thing alienating us more from people and creating more judgment.
Yeah. And so it's, it's like those triggers or things that happen to you that you can't just throw them out the window.
No.
Like, they're going to be there. For me, fear of judgment will always be there. There will be a little voice in my head, but now I get to be in relationship with that and tell myself the truth, because I've had those things happen in my life. I'm actually grateful for them, because it's brought me to where I am today. It's made my vision the strongest thing. Like, everything I do comes from my deep passion and purpose on this planet, which is my vision, which is empowering women. And so I don't just what resists persists. We've all heard
Yes.
that. I don't throw it out the window. Like I'm going to overcome judgment and I'm
Yeah.
never going to care again. Like
Yeah.
that's something that I will constantly be working on, and that's okay. But I just love to be free.
Yeah.
And for me, and every people that are listening, I also see a story when people are like, but I haven't had anything like that happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so they feel like almost that they don't get to share the things that are their trauma.
And trauma is trauma. So whether somebody, there's no comparison on that. So if you don't have things that happen to you, you have other things that happened. Maybe there's no comparison on that. I think it affects us all the same way, whether it's severe or not severe. However we deal with it, it's still trauma.
Right.
So everybody has those things. And by hiding them, I just think it perpetuates this shame and this judgment around things.
Yeah. And just like you said, everyone has those things. Trauma is trauma. To be completely honest, the thing that holds me back the most is the judgment and the bullying. That's what I constantly work through. To me, that's what has kept me in the past from believing myself, amongst the other things that people could say are bigger traumas. There's no bigger, better, good, worse. It's all affects us, and no one's story is more important than another.
And what I want everyone to I keep doing what I want everyone to hear. I want you to hear the whole podcast, apparently, because I keep bringing it up. But what's so critical is there's such a pattern here, because we want to avoid the bullying and the drama, right? We want to, and the judgment. So we want to avoid it. So we work to be perfect. Like I just got to be perfect. I got to look perfect. I got to be perfect. I got to do perfect. And then we get judged for that because people assume that we're perfect or whatever. So it just keeps this cycle going. That's what's so crazy. So we're chasing this false thing. Yeah. Because there is no perfect.
Yeah. And so many times I do believe that people don't even realize. I didn't realize I was doing that for a long time. So awareness and truth and freedom can't happen until you are willing to tell your story.
Because Sarah, so if someone had looked at you and made a comment about the way you look now, or not, if they had made a comment about how you look, old you would have taken that as, I'm not perfect enough. So I gotta get better. Maybe I gotta be more perfect, or I gotta be this. But now I think you view it two different ways. One, that they've got their own trauma they're battling. And two, they don't actually know you. They don't actually know you. And that's where that authenticity and sharing comes in, because when they do actually know you, that judgment goes away.
Yeah. So I don't want to say old Sarah. Before I really owned my truth, and I realized that I don't get to hide my gifts anymore. Mm-hmm. Like that's all those things, like my story, like put me into hiding. And then I realized, like, I'm not serving my vision. I'm not helping anyone else by hiding.
Yes.
So I'm literally not. Sometimes I'm sure you notice it now, and it's something that I get to correct. I won't even say all my accomplishments, because that little voice will be like, oh no, you're going to be too much. People are going to be rolling their eyes. They're not going to like you because you're too this. So it's a constant thing, but it's like, when I own all of my accomplishments, I'm only changing the freaking wheel.
Yes.
Letting other people do the same.
Yes. Okay. So I want to take a different shift on this right now. Thank you for sharing all of that. How did all this translate into what you stand for now? Like, because now you have a big vision, and like, where was GirlTalk Network born from?
So GirlTalk Network, I had it in my soul when I was younger. I found things that I wrote out, business plans, notes, journaling, that I already knew what I wanted to do. Obviously, as my journey was unfolding, and I wanted trust, and I wanted to go out and be the girl that danced and didn't care what people thought, my true self, how I was born into this world. So I had all these journaling, this business plan as a teenager that I found a year into creating GirlTalk. I found it, and it was exactly what GirlTalk was.
I love that. Now, did you ever imagine it would grow to be this huge women's empowerment concept?
No, I didn't. Okay. So my true authentic, like knowing what my gifts are. Yes. My voice in the back of my head that was like, that's too big. It was funny because it started out as like, this is going to be worldwide. We're going to change the world. Women are going to be able to be their full selves. Like that was my instinct. And then the little voice was like, oh, you just need to start in your community. So I'm like, okay, like GirlTalk will start in my community. in Manhattan Beach. It'll be, you know, we'll have like a women's event and it'll be fun community thing. Cause that was about 4 years ago. So that was still in where I hadn't developed the full tools to completely shine. So it's like, I knew what it was going to be, what I wanted it to be. But again, the stories that hold you back.
Mm.
So now I'm like, heck yes, it's all over the world. Like as many women that want to be involved, like everyone gets to feel like this. That's where I'm at now. But again, it's the tools and fighting for it and the awareness. And the more that you speak your truth, the more that you will have the courage to think the thoughts that are really you.
God, I love that. I love that. Oh, okay. So now many of you listening. So, one of the reasons I wanted to introduce Sarah to my audience here and share her story is, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one is I think there's a lot of women out there that are still hiding their truth and feeling that they have to keep this hidden. And I'm hoping this helped open that up for you. But also, to really take on this look of how we judge others, because we really never know their whole truth. And I just love this whole concept behind Girl Talk and women's empowerment. And I really feel that you stand for what that really means. And it's funny because someone would have looked at you before they know your story and maybe said, well, what does she know about that? But it's super clear that it's not about just being born as privileged. Like you've been through your own share of trauma too, and you've really turned that pain into purpose.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing that I love also that you mentioned that is I got that feedback when I was on stage. I told you this before. Some people would come up to me and be like, hey, when I saw you walk on the stage, I knew who you were, but I've never heard you speak before. And I was kind of like, what does she have to say? And
Yeah.
like, I'm so sorry for thinking that. And that used to pain me. I would leave events and I would hold on to that story.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, yes, that's amazing. Like,
I love that. Yeah.
I love hearing that because that's what I'm here for. I'm here for us to
Yep.
judgment.
Yes. Oh, I love this, Sarah. Okay. I have another question for you. This is a question I ask all guests. If somebody's listening right now and they're their own personal rock bottom, so they're dealing with their own personal struggle, maybe their business is failing, maybe they have a breakup, anything that's their own personal struggle that they're going through right now, their own rock bottom. If you were to give them 3 pieces of advice on how they can start shifting and leveling up their life, what would you tell them?
So first, anything that's going on in your life right now, you are responsible for. And I think a lot of people don't want to face that reality.
Explain what you mean by that.
So we could, and I've been there before, we could tend to blame. Well, I hired an assistant that I couldn't trust and she didn't get this done. And whatever your rock bottom is, you have a responsibility. So first accept that, have compassion with yourself, find out what are the steps that have happened that I've been responsible for to put me in the place that I am today. Your responsibility is everything. And once that you own that responsibility, it's in your control more. Because if you just blame it on other people, you're never going to take control of your rock bottom and get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. So be responsible. So responsible.
Own where you're at. Own your rock bottom. And believe that anything is possible. For me, something I learned this from Dr. Joe, getting out of bed, most people, many of us, have a thought of what do we have to do today or a worry from yesterday. So I've trained my brain when I wake up in the morning, and if I'm like in a big launch or I have, you're up leveling, so you're having that imposter syndrome, like that's what my brain will go to because our human, that's how we're designed.
Yeah.
So I instantly shift it to something positive and something that's going on in the present.
Oh,
And
I love that.
It's a simple thing. You can't be like, oh my God, I thought like that again. I had a negative thought. I'm just doomed. Like that's how we're made.
Yeah.
So you just wake up, you might have your worry and you bring it back to the present and you make it a positive thought. And that's
I love that.
huge for me.
So responsibility, being present, bring you back to the present spot. And then do you have a third?
What you believe you become. So declaring. I am not kidding. Every time I declare something, it literally happens, like if not the next day, that week. So you're in your rock bottom, start getting very specific about what you want to happen.
I love that. Whew, okay. This is so good. So powerful, Sarah. Thank you for sharing. I want to know where people can find you. And then I also want you to share just a quick little bit on why we decided to partner on this upcoming Women's Empowerment VIP weekends.
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram. I love connecting with everyone on Instagram. I mean, I love using social media for good. So at GirlTalk Network, and my website, girltalknetwork.org.
Yeah.
That's where you can find me.
Yeah. And then Sarah and we have decided to create, many of the listeners know that I've done some VIP weekends in the past, and Sarah and I have decided to move forward partnering on them. And hopefully after listening to her, you'll understand why I felt so passionately about bringing her in to having these VIP weekends where we help 5 to 10 women completely, empower them to level up their lives, step into the best version of themselves, let go of the stories that they've been holding on to, and start truly like aging in reverse and leveling up their lives. And that's what we are now jointly doing together. And if you're interested in one of these, we have one coming up very soon. You can apply at nataliejillapply.com. And I'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for our VIP weekend. And thank you
Yes.
for having me on. I mean, it's next level. Like, you and I both have the mindset of anything is possible. It's not too late. It's not too soon. Like,
Yep.
I'm so freaking excited to come together with you and these amazing women. Like, I can't wait.
I know. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for leveling up with us today. Please share this episode if you found it helpful so others can join in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on future shows. And if you would leave me a 5-star review, I appreciate those so much. I read all of them, and it's how I know that I'm giving you information that you find valuable. And come interact with me over on Instagram at NatalieJillFit. I read all the direct messages and comments over there. Make it a great day, creating everything from nothing.